welcome back to the 15-minute fix. Glad you decided to join us today. And our fix for today is going to be about mastering the context around public speaking. So this is a little different from your conventional how to have a great intro, middle, and ending, but the context around it. And this is a really critical topic because there was an article that Forbes came out with a few years ago that said that only about 10% of people really enjoy public speaking, like really get a kick out of it. And then about 80% of people in the middle tolerate it, usually have some anxiety around it, but they'll at least get it done and live to fight another day. And then the other 10% of people have a debilitating fear of public speaking. But I really enjoy it. And it's interesting because public speaking is in so many places around us. What's your favorite public speaking to observe, Kim?
Like TED Talks, I think is probably one of my favorites that comes to the top of my head.
We also see it in so many other places that people don't really think of public speaking. For example, stand-up comedy, political speeches, you have religious speeches, you have staff meetings at work. There's all types of public speaking, keynote speeches. And so because it's all around us and each of us at some point will have to engage in it, let's talk about how to do this well and really just crush public speaking in a positive way and make public speaking work.
It's interesting because I really feel like I fall in the top two categories. I really actually enjoy public speaking, and even after having done it for years, I still have like some level of anxiety around it. And thankfully, I've been in positions where I've had the opportunity to practice it, so I've gotten better about hiding my anxiety. But every single time I have to get up to do it, and then forget about hearing it recorded after, like it literally puts my stomach in knots. So we're here to say I'm a personal testimony. You can have that anxiety and still do it and do it well, or just know how to get through it and with some effective tools.
Absolutely, because you're a great public speaker and presenter, and no one would ever think that about you. And I will say that one of the things that have been helpful for me, and will give you your first point, is to keep it conversational. A lot of times we don't think that we can effectively engage the audience. We think we have to know all of the content and just present to people and have it all memorized. When possible, point number one, engage your audience. Ask a question if you're in a smaller group. Throw questions out there. Let people respond. Bounce ideas off of your audience. So keep it conversational. Even if you're doing a keynote speech in a huge audience where people may not be able to respond to you directly, you can still ask a question or give a story, ask a hypothetical question. Have you all ever thought about a time when you X, Y, and Z, throw out something that people will have to think about and respond to? Be conversational, be engaging. The next point that I would make is preparation is the key. A lot of times people will think that preparation only happens just with memorizing. I have to read over my notes and just commit it to memory, but also practice it. Practice in the mirror, bounce it off of someone, practice your timing, your pace, make sure you're not speaking too quickly or you're not dragging too slowly. Preparation happens in many different ways, including memorizing what you're going to say. But I would say that preparation is key. And it's so important that when you feel comfortable, a lot of times it helps to take away that anxiety. Have you noticed that, Kim, in your own experience?
Yeah, definitely. Preparation is key. And I think it's important to know what your preparation style looks like. For me, I found that if I have too many words on the page, that actually makes me a little bit more anxious, because when I get there, I will feel like I'm reading it versus having a more natural conversation. So my prep really involves, kind of just highlighting key notes that I want to say under each topic. And that helps the presentation flow a lot better.
Absolutely. And to your point about personal style, I tend to rehearse things in my mind as I'm driving or as I'm doing other things. I'm not a stand in the mirror person that practices usually, but that works for a lot of people. But I am constantly rehearsing words in my mind on the go or while I'm doing other things. And so to your point about knowing your style, that's important. And to that point also, I will say, my next point would be limit your personal distractions. You have to know yourself, know your strategy, what works for you on presentation day, or what I like to call game day when I'm presenting. So if you are an organized person, make sure that you have things lined up and ready to go the night before. Lay out your clothes, limit the amount of shuffling that you have to do, limit anything else that you have to think about that does not involve your presentation, because ultimately that can lead to the anxiety of the presentation itself, and it has nothing to do with the presentation. So again, we're going to tell you today about that context around preparing. So limit all the personal distractors. When you are in a presentation, try to have things electronically in addition to just something that you have to hold in your hand. If you have a lot of papers to shuffle through and you drop them, that could be a disaster. That could throw off your whole presentation. So try to have notes electronically, or have as few note cards or notes as possible. Have them in a way where they're easily accessible and won't end up all over the place. And I think the last thing that I would say is engage your audience. Make sure that you're asking questions, throwing ideas out there to make people think, to make people want to respond to you and engage you. Also, see where your audience is with their eye contact, their body language. If you see that something that you're saying is not resonating, begin to engage your audience differently. Maybe ask a different question, or don't ask as many questions. Maybe give them more content in that moment. Or maybe you need to insert a little humor, which for some people, if that's not your lane, can be tricky. So you have to kind of be trial and error with that. But definitely engage your audience in a different way if you see that what you're saying is not resonating with them. Kim, can you give anything additional? What are some additional points that you have? Because you're really great at presenting.
And thank you. And, again, I just want to reiterate that I've had practice. And I think that's the biggest thing that, Kasha kind of mentioned. In addition to just getting prepared when you have a speech, if you have an opportunity to have practice, even if it's in a smaller setting, that's a great way to hear your voice, know your voice, and just get used to what that good tension feels like to make yourself more comfortable. That's really the only way to go about it. And so whatever it takes to get you to that point, definitely move forward. Kasha, made a lot of great points, and I want to add a little bit more technical and tactical context to that. So I think that, as you're getting prepared, you definitely want to know who you're presenting to, who is your audience, because that is key in helping us to deliver the right messages to people. As we're connecting with the topic to the team, if you are talking to, a group of students, maybe that are in elementary school, that's going to be a lot different than if you're speaking to a boardroom full of executives. Could be the same material, but what words you use, the examples that you use are going to be a little bit different. So you really want to understand who your audience is so that you can tailor your message to them. And as a part of getting prepared, Kasha made a lot of great points there about how you set yourself up for success when you're preparing for public speaking. But I just wanted to reiterate that again. In addition to what you do ahead of time, it's a good idea to get wherever you're getting prior to getting there, even if it's a Zoom meeting. Log in a few minutes early so that you're familiar with the tools that you're using. If you're presenting in a room, get to the room so you can feel out what the room feels like before anyone else is in it. Get familiar. Are there any distractions in there that may throw you off base? Can you find a good point to focus on the wall? I tell people that all the time. They're like, you look right at us. I'm like, nope, I was looking at that clock right behind your head. So just get familiar with your space. Prepare yourself for anything that you anticipate. Is there going to be someone in the room that you're particularly intimidated by, maybe because they're a good public speaker or someone that's given you critique before? All of those things I think are important to think about as you're getting prepped and ready to prepare and present to your audience. You really want to know your material. As Kasha said, you may be the subject matter expert in that moment, but lean into your audience to help them understand and connect to what you're saying. And part of that is just being familiar with not just what you're talking about, but the flow of what it sounds like when you're presenting it. I am just going to go ahead and say it. I tried to think of a fluffy way to say it, but fluff is not necessarily my forte. Don't read the slides. No one wants you to be up there reading the slide. There, I said it. One of my favorite memes is, this could have been an email. that's how people feel when you read the slides. So by knowing your material, it really will help you to make a natural, conversational, type presentation that you won't have to lean on reading the slides. Really, the slides should just be a visual aid to help you connect the also for the visual learners with what you're saying, but you don't want to be reading the slides if you can help it. Certainly use it as a guide to keep you on topic if you don't have cue cards or anything like that, but do not read the slides word for word. I said it like 3 times because I want to make sure that that's clear. The other thing is, don't lose your cool. We're all human, and while I know that public speaking comes with a lot of pressure in of itself, especially depending on who your audience is, there will be times that you will lose your place, forget your words, get distracted, and it is okay. Think about that as you're preparing, anticipate what some of that may be, and think about how you will, some things that you feel comfortable saying or doing in that moment. Sometimes it's taking just a moment to pause. Sometimes you can be transparent with your audience. Oh, my apologies, I lost my place. Give me just a moment. I'll get back on track. Whatever feels comfortable and natural to you, have that tool ready to go so that you're not further thrown off base by trying to figure out how to do it. But other than that, take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. Chances are you're not doing anything that, is going to be detrimental to yourself or anyone in the room through that. It's okay to make mistakes, but make sure that you find and understand the way that you best get back on track. Last but not least, you really want to know your purpose. What is the reason that you're giving that presentation? You understanding that purpose is really the way that you're going to be able to connect with the audience. As you more understand the reason behind it, it will help you to find ways that through your presentation that you can humanize it, give it that conversational feel, make it feel more intimate, make it feel more formal, whatever your purpose is in that moment. I can think of a presentation that I personally did at work about our annual review process. I was probably about 2 years into my company at that time. I felt the process was very cumbersome, but as I did them, I found tools that were helpful for me and offered to share that with some of my colleagues. So, really the purpose there was to help people understand, to help uncomplicate something that previously seemed complicated. So in that, I thought about a couple of things. One, I want to make this easy. I don't want it to feel like it's a burden if anyone's going to come and attend this training. It was optional for them to come, but I want it to be an enjoyable time. So I had activities they can engage in. I gave them opportunity to ask questions because I imagined there would be lots of questions, so we were able to dialogue. And I really felt that helped be able to be a good resource for people who may have had the same question that I did. Mm-hmm. So you want to understand your purpose. You are the expert in that moment. Doesn't mean that you have to know anything. I leaned into my audience a lot in that particular presentation to be able to glean from them what experience that they had that was either similar to mine or something that was completely different, but that someone else could learn from in the room. So really just knowing and understanding those pieces are really key, I think, to putting on a great presentation.
Thanks, Kim. And speaking of gleaning from the greats, whenever I see something that's done really well, I like to know the context behind it. So for some additional tips on preparing public speaking presentations and kind of how the greats do it, and I'm referring to the persons at TED Talk, the creators of TED actually wrote a book with that same name, TED Talks. And so check that out as a resource that we're recommending. It's a really good book, lots of great context around how to formulate your thinking around public speaking and really how to deliver well and speak so that people will listen. That's what I like to say. So check that out as a book resource. How can we challenge the listeners today?
I really think that practice is the key. So our challenge to you today is start small, but get started on public speaking. Whether that is in a small group at your church, any type of community group you're involved in, at your kid's school, get in front, get started, get someone that you trust to give you some pointers and tips. Look up those pointers and tips, use some of the tools we gave you today, but you just have to do it. So we challenge you, take on those small opportunities to get in front of people and present and practice your public speaking skills. We'd love to hear what you do. We'd love to hear your questions and give you some additional answers. So don't forget to comment and let us know what you decide to do.
Thanks, Kim. And I will say for Kim and I, this was additional practice for us in the virtual space,
Yeah.
additional public speaking practice virtually. So we're enjoying this. And in addition to that, as always, we want to help you all as well and give you some practical tools on the go. So looking forward to hearing what you all share with us. So thanks for listening today. Check out that book resource, TED Talks, and we'll connect with you all again soon. So have a good one.